Hello and welcome to Crux Investor. We spoke earlier today to Claudia Törnqvist, who is the CEO of Kodiak Copper, their TSXV listed copper explorer. If you want our thoughts and opinions on that conversation, and indeed the company itself, you can find that at cruxinvestor.com/club, where you can also find detailed company reports, market commentary from experts from around the world on a variety of commodities and companies. There are training videos and summaries of other interviews that we've done, and of course a thriving community of investors sharing their thoughts and ideas with each other. And if you go and sign up for the waitlist now, you qualify for a 7-day free trial. And of course we'd love your feedback too. So do give us a like, leave your comments below, and if you want to see what we talked about with Claudia, take a look in the description below. Claudia, how are you?
I'm very well. Thank you. It's great to be here.
Well, thanks for coming on our show. It's a story we've wanted to get on the show for a while, and we like copper. I think it's one of the commodities for next year. So thank you very much for making time. So where are you today?
I'm at my home office in Vancouver, actually. And it's for a change, a nice and relatively sunny day here.
Beautiful, beautiful. So how are things in Vancouver? Everyone coping with lockdown?
There's not so much lockdown here. I think on the West Coast here in Canada, we've been relatively spared and have less COVID than in many other regions, so fortunate. But obviously everybody very cautious and
as they should be. As they should be. Well, look, I'm going to talk about your business plan and sort of understand the company and how you've built it and what you're trying to do. But first, I need to talk about the slight madness of the last 2 months with your share price. Because you guys went from, somewhere around sort of, what was it, about 51 cents, that sort of level, up to about $3.35, I think, at one point, in the space of a matter of a couple of weeks. And that's back down to 154. So you're still treble where you were 2 months ago. But what happened? Why that peak? Why this kind of desire to buy Kodiak Copper?
That's a good question. It's certainly been a bit of a roller coaster ride. When we came out with our initial results, those were, for a porphyry, extraordinarily high-grade results. We were very fortunate to hit right off the bat some really high grades, and that, of course, created then quite some excitement. And we've now released the second set of results, which are good. We like them. I had a number of congratulatory emails from porphyry experts, from our largest shareholders. But the general market looked at the numbers and thought, well, not so good, not as good as the first ones. And yeah, we saw some selling off. And so it's been a bit of an up and down. But for us, the important thing is we're financed. We have a lot more work planned and a lot more opportunity to generate good results.
Okay. So you think people kind of maybe misunderstood, perhaps got a little bit too excited about, maybe didn't even understand what you were trying to do with regards to this asset. I mean, it was extraordinary. It wasn't a hockey stick. It was just straight up. Your share price, went to the moon, and it got a lot of attention. People got very, very excited. The results have come out recently. The sheen's come off slightly, but you say you're happy.
Yes, we are. I mean, what's important to understand with a porphyry deposit such as ours, porphyry mineralization, is that it's a large animal and large lower grade with potentially some higher grade zones in there. And so what we released so far was like one really high grade drill hole. And we've also have some lower grade. Both is important. Both you need to make eventually a economic scenario. And so, yeah, I think it's important not only to look at the one high grade result, but also look at the larger, lower grade mineral envelope and the size potential. And that's where we were very pleased with the results, also our second set of results, because now with only the few holes we have, we can start seeing already some size. We have a width of 300 meters over which we intercepted mineralization down to 800 meters. And yeah, so we can start seeing some size, even though we are very, very early on, of course, in our drilling, lots more work to do.
Yeah, for sure. So you're saying it's not necessarily about the grade, but it's about the size of the ore body that you're investigating. Is that the message?
I think it is both. Typically, a porphyry is a large body of mineralization, And there are higher grade zones in there, and often those are the ones that make the mine eventually. We just had last week a couple of days on site and did some geological interpretation and technical work. And we looked at the northeast zone of Mount Polly. That's another porphyry mine in BC. And that zone is actually, in terms of size, not very big. And it's sort of comparable to what we start seeing at Gate. And that was a high-grade zone that was discovered. And that zone underwrote the reopening of the mine in 2005. And it was just this high-grade nut, as our geologist calls it, that then was blended with the lower grade, the bulk of the mineralization, and that then made an economic scenario. So finding high-grade zones, these sort of core zones in the porphyry, is very, very important for the economics. And we were fortunate to hit onto a really high-grade zone at Gate right at the beginning of our work.
Right. But maybe across the bear for a while until we get some more results out there. Talk to me about the team, because obviously we've interviewed Chris Taylor a few times of Great Bear, and he's doing some great things on the gold front. And I know you're part of the Discovery Group with some fantastic companies in there and a well-managed group. But how did you get involved? And what were you brought on to do?
Well, Chris was the founder, Chris Taylor, of Kodiak. He started the company in 2015. And it's an interesting question. I was actually involved right from the start as an investor. I invested in the very early stages and then also helped Chris as a consultant. At the time, it was just him and a very small company. So I became a consultant, then later went onto the board in 2016, and then in 2017 joined the management team as president and now CEO.
If I may, what's your background, your experience?
My background is I've been in the resource industry now for 20 years, and much of that time with Rio Tinto. I spent almost 10 years with Rio Tinto, and a lot of the time also worked on copper projects. I was involved in some work on Escondida, expansion feasibility study. Escondida is the biggest porphyry mine in the world. And I also did some work on the evaluation of Oyu Tolgoi, another very large porphyry mine in Mongolia. So yeah, a fair amount of my background is in copper, and a little bit of other commodities with Rio Tinto. And then, that was the first 10 years of my commodity experience. And then I made the switch to Vancouver and have been in the junior sector ever since.
Right, for better or for worse. So let's talk about copper, because with most companies, timing is everything. We've seen that with some nickel companies who've gone too early. Do you think this is the right time for copper, and why?
Well, copper, I think the fundamentals look quite exceptional. If you look into the longer term, there is a massive amount of copper demand on the horizon from all the green revolution. And when I was at Rio Tinto, we did lots of fundamental analysis on the demand-supply dynamics in various commodities. And I have to say, I've rarely seen a picture as dark as it is in copper at the moment. So there's a lot of demand coming. And if you look on the other hand, the supply side, there is very little in the pipeline. I just read a very astonishing statistic recently. In 1991 alone, more copper was discovered than in the last 10 years combined, which I found was quite amazing, because there just simply haven't been many large discoveries in recent years.
Yeah.
So, no. I think that bodes well for much higher copper prices going forward.
Well, yeah, I mean, it has been sort of sneaking up recently. People are getting a bit interested. Well, you've definitely seen that. People are getting interested in copper again. So let's talk about what you're trying to do, what you've been brought on board to do. In terms of working towards this, this lack of copper exploration and development in the market at the moment. So what have you been asked to do for Kodiak?
Well, my background is mostly sort of the financial commercial side. That's sort of what I cover, management angle. Chris Taylor, who is the chairman, he is a geologist. He covers the technical side. So we're quite complementary, I would say. And I should also mention that we're part of the discovery group, whom you touched upon already before, which for us as a company, I think is fabulous, because it gives us a great network of other companies, of contacts, of technical expertise to tap into. And it makes us a much stronger company than we would otherwise be.
Okay, but so let's talk about what you've got. I mean, let's talk about some of these assets. You've given us some numbers there, some early drill results. You've told us that you've got enough cash. What are you sitting on about? I know you raised 12.5 million, but you had a little bit before that as well. So what's the plan?
15 million.
15 million, right. So that's great for a company of market cap of what, 60 million-ish today. What are you going to do with it? Where's the growth story coming from with that 15 million?
Well, the answer of that is quite simple. A lot more drilling. We're now financed to the tune of 30,000 meters of drilling, and we've got our work cut out. We have at the moment still a little bit more drilling to do at the gate zone where we've made the discovery. And we then have other targets across the project, which we would also like to drill, in particular the Dillard zone, which actually we meant to drill this summer. Our last hole was supposed to go into the Dillard zone, but then we had these fabulous results at Gate, so we didn't move the drill. So we still have the Dillard zone that we would like to drill, and that's certainly also very high on the list. And we have other targets. So yeah, we'll have a very busy year coming up, and lots more drilling, lots more news flow.
Right, but again, so sometimes when there's just drilling and drilling and drilling, it doesn't paint a picture. So what is it that we should be looking for in 12 months' time? What does good look like for you?
Well, we're certainly working on drilling the gate zone further and showing size and showing where it comes to surface, placing it closer to surface. We'll also be building out the lower grade mineralized envelope. So there will be also a large number of lower grade results, I'm sure, coming. And we will be aiming to find further high grade zones, porphyry centers, and the Dillard target that I just referred to, that's also an interpreted porphyry center that we would like to test, where we think there is potential for another high-grade discovery.
Right. But what was the information telling you at the moment? Okay, so you talk about hole 2, mineralization started at 200 meters. Does that concern you? Does that say this is an underground project? I mean, what do you know today about what are you starting to see?
It's very early days to talk about underground open pit and so on. We are only 6 drill holes into a 10 square kilometer mineralized footprint. So at the moment, what we're working towards is certainly an open pit, so near surface mineralization. We will be looking where our gate zone, where the mineralization comes closest to surface. And from all we can tell now, from what the data tells us, we are looking at an upright porphyry system. And upright meaning that it will come somewhere closer to surface. And we're chasing that now and just will be understanding more how it is oriented, where the high-grade zones are, and where it extends as we drill further.
That's interesting. So how does that inform the way that you go about spending your money in the future? I mean, obviously, once you've kind of worked out how it lies, you will work out where you're going to spend your money, presumably. I mean, how does it work?
Well, exploration is always very much one hole that you drill determines what the next hole will be, because every time you drill, you know a little bit more about what you have, how the mineralization is oriented, where the high grades are. So you learn as you go, and that drives the future plans. And at the moment, I think our aim will be to chase this high grade zone at Gate, see how large we can how large it is and how much of it we can prove. And then, as I said, other targets on the horizon as well.
Okay, so let's talk about if Chris is the technical guy, so let's talk to you about the money then. So you've done a raise recently. You've got some institutional in there. I know that because some of that was from London for people I know. So who took up that placement first of all?
Well, it was the majority Tech Resources who came in as a large shareholder, 9.9%, and then a small top-up raise for just a very small number of investors. But the biggest chunk was taken up by Tech. When we had our results and then financed, a lot of interest, as you can imagine, and we had board deal offers from banks with good institutional investors on the table. And on the other hand, Tech and strategic investors, and Tech then really made an offer that was by far the most advantageous for our shareholders. So we went that route. So that's where we stand at the moment.
Okay, so what's the register look like in terms of split between institutional and retail at the moment?
Well, before this round of finance, we were still very typical small, early days junior mining companies with the majority of shareholders, high net worth individuals and family offices, those types of investors. I would say at least half of my shareholder base I knew personally, and I was on the phone of quite a lot. So now we are one step further, and we have Tech obviously in as a large shareholder, and going forward, I would see our shareholder base changing more towards more institutional investors and funds, because now we are a size where we actually interesting for those types of investors.
It's starting to get that way for sure. But so Tech did this placement before the results came out, but they're obviously much more technical. And they understand what it is that you're chasing. So they weren't disappointed by the results.
No, they sent me actually a note saying great results. And
Okay, so your message therefore to retail is don't be disappointed. This is just the beginning. It's good.
That's what we certainly believe, and we like the project as much as we always did, and we like it more as we learn more about it. So and I think you put it well. It's early days. I think that's also important to understand for investors. We're really only a couple of holes into a very large system.
Well, I think I have to remind myself you were a 20 million market cap company at the end of August. That's how much things have changed. So I guess, well, look, Claudia, thank you very much for your time today. I know it's early stage, early story, but we wanted to get it on board the train, as it were, because we think copper is going to do great things in 2021. Obviously, with the porphyry system underneath you, the potential is big, and we look forward to following the story. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you for having me.